So before we start in Mirza Hashem Lamed Tes, let's look at Lamed Ches Lamed Beis, Omar Rabba, Omar Rav. And that's about, let's say, 1/3 down the page. Do you have it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So until now, we know about the sheet of Shmuel, that if a person makes his Eved Hefker, then Yotza Lecherus, he's a free agent. He doesn't even need to get Shichur. Now we're going to speak about Rav. Rav addresses a slightly different question, and that is, Omar Rav Magdish Avdo. So a man owns an Eved Knani and he makes it Hegdesh. Now, in order for Hegdesh to be Chal, the Adon, the owner of the Eved, has to remove his bailus, his ownership over the Eved, and then transfer the ownership over to Hegdesh. And again, we're going to see that Rav, according to a second view, this is the view of Rabbah and his transmission of Rav about a Magdish Avdo. We're going to soon see Rav Yosef had a different tradition of Rav about a Mafkir Avdo. So a Magdish Avdo Yotza Lecheres, my timer. Why is he Yotza Lecheres? Why is he from Gufei Lo Kodesh? There's no Kedushas Haguf on an Eved. Kedushas Haguf is only Lemizbeach, and an Eved is not Roy Lemizbeach, obviously. You might say that the Eved should become Kadosh by what's called Kedushas Domim, which means Kedushas Berek Habayis. However, that would mean he would declare Dmei Avdi Olai Lehegdesh. The Domim of the Eved goes to Hegdesh. And had he said that, that declaration would have imposed the Kedushas Berek Habayis on the Eved, which means that the Adon would sell the Eved and the money would be earmarked for Berek Habayis. But Lidmei Lo Ka'amar, he didn't add those words of Ani Magdish Es Avdi Lidomav. He didn't make that declaration. So therefore, we cannot assume that he means to be Magdish the Eved for Kedushas Berek Habayis. So he would have had to say Dmei Avdi Olai Lehegdesh, but that he didn't say. Dilehevi Am Kadosh Ka'amar. And according to Rav, we interpret his statement, his declaration of Harei Zeh Hegdesh, as if he was saying that he now is sanctified with Kedushas Yisrael. Because an Eved only has a limited Kedushas Yisrael, and as a result of Cherus, he acquires a full-fledged Kedushas Yisrael. So then what Rav is saying is that this Eved now becomes Kodesh B'Kedushas Yisrael, which means that he is a free slave. He's freed. Now, there is another case where you Magdish something that's not Roy Lemizbeach. That's called Magdish Behemoth Meah. And what happens is if there's no possibility of Kedushas Haguf, because we cannot bring a behemoth Meah on the Mizbeach, then it automatically becomes Kedushas Domim. And that's exactly what happens here in this statement of Rav. Now we get to a different tradition of Rav. Rav Yosef Amar Rav, he says in the name of Rav, Hamafkir Avdo Yotza Lecherus, which means that Rav is reiterating the statement of Shmuel that a mafkir avdo is yotza lecherus. And the reason for that is because once he makes it hefker, he removes his bailus over the Eved. And once you mafkir the kinyan, you don't even need to get shichur for that. Mandi Omar Magdish Kolshkein Mafkir. If Rav was talking about Hegdesh, and Hegdesh means that we interpret his statement as to mean Hashlom as Kedushas Yisrael, and therefore it's a removal of the Bailus, and therefore the Eved goes L'cheres. How much more so in the case of Mafkir, we explicitly declares that I'm removing my Bailus. But Mandi Omar Hefker, if we accept Rav Yosef's tradition of Rav, that Rav said that Mafkir Avdol Yotzel L'cherus, then Avol Magdish Lo, because Dilma Dami Koma. We don't know that Rav would certainly hold that the Eved goes L'cherus after the Baal is Magdishin. But rather, maybe what the Baal was saying is that the Hegdesh here should be Kedushas Domim. And even though we said before, L'Domi Lokam, he didn't make any statement about Dmei Avdi Olai, but nevertheless, we have to consider the possibility that he really meant to say Dmei Avdi Olai. He was Magdish the Eved, meaning he was Miskaven for Kedushas Domim. Okay, now the Gemara has a suffix. I'm not sure if we have to learn all this. Let's try an experiment. And we'll fast forward to the Toshma at the very bottom of the Amud. So right now we're skipping this whole piece.
Good. Yeah, got it. Got it. Yep.
Toshma, we have a brisa. Hamagdish Avdo Osev Yochel, the Eved, this Eved Kanani, can work and earn his wages, his parnasa, and spend that money for food and eat the food. And there's no Isur Hanoah here. Why? Shelo Higdish El Adamav. Because the Adon had the intention of just being Magdish, the Eved, for his Damim. But there's no Chalos Kedusha on the Gufo Shel Eved. And the reason for that is because an Eved cannot go on the Mizbeach. He's not an animal, he's a human being. So now what we're saying is that Lo Higdish El Adamav, but Rav said that he was Yotze L'cherus. And when it says here in the Brisa, Lo Higdish El Adamav, it means that there's nothing to remove the bailus of the Rav. It just means that in event that the Eved gets sold, the money is earmarked towards Hegdish. And now we begin Daf Lamed Tes. Mani Rabbi Meir, this Brisa is not a contradiction to Rav, because again, if we accept the Brisa that Lo Higdish El Adamav, then that's a contradiction to Rav, because Rav says that he's Yotze L'cherus. And as we said before, Higdish L'Adamav means that in the event that he gets sold, his money is earmarked to Higdish. But Rav says that he's Yotze L'cherus, that by declaring that the Eved is Hegdesh, the Adon has removed his ownership over the Eved. But now we're going to introduce Rabbi Meir. And what does that mean? When a person says something and it's connected to Hegdesh, he wants that his words should have a validity to them. And they shouldn't be in vain. They shouldn't be meaningless. So we're going to always interpret his words in a way that it will be Hegdesh, and Hegdesh will gain and benefit from it. So let's say he said that that let's say he was magdish it as Ola and Shlomim, and it can't be both Ola and Shlomim, so we'll assume he meant Hareza Ola and not Shlomim. Whatever kinds of changes, editing work we have to do on his words in order to make sure that they have some validity. Now here he's magdish as Evet, and we know, and he knows that an Evet cannot be brought on the Mizbeach. So what did he mean when he was magdish the behema? And again, he doesn't mean that there's an am kadosh v'yotze lecherus, and he's being magdish the Evet with ketushas Yisrael shlema gemura. Okay. And he says, Ivy, you want me to take a break or no? Okay. So again, we're saying that he didn't have kavanah to engender a full kedushas Yisrael, because if he was intending to do so, then he should have used the lashon of shichrur. I'm being meshacher you, not a lashon of hegdish. Ella, what we say his kavanah was dmei ha'eved alai, that I have an obligation to pay the value of the eved when he's sold to hegdish. But Rav, he said his din, according to the Chachamim, will hold Adam motzi dvarav b'teila mipiv. So when a man makes a statement and that dibur has something to do with hegdish, we're going to see whether or not it's dvarav b'teila. So Rav doesn't accept the principle of Rabbi Meir, and therefore Rav will say, you know what, we'll take the straightforward interpretation of his words, even if it means that Hegdish stands to lose by that, and when his Makdish is Eved, and we know for sure that he didn't have in mind Damav Olai, that doesn't fit at all into his language, but we're going to say that he wants Am Kadosh, that the Eved should be Yotze Lecheres, and he's a full-fledged Jew. And even though Hegdish is not going to gain anything by it, but nevertheless, this is the principle of Ra. Hachinami Mistabra. The Gemara now wants to assume that this brisa reflects the Shita Rabbi Meir. The Katani Seifa V'chein Hu Shehigdish Es Atzmo Osa V'ochel. So what happens here? I'm very serious. I'm not joking. The Eved himself became Hegdish. What does that mean? That the Adon was Magdish the Eved, and yet the Eved is allowed to do Avoda, and we can be Nenen from his Maisi Yadayim. Why? Shlo Higdish El L'Damav. His intention was to be Magdish only the Damim, but not the person himself. Okay. If this brisa reflects indeed the Shita Rabbi Meir Shapir, now we understand the brisa, because in any situation of Hakadosha, when a person is Magdish, let's say he's Magdish a Ben Chorin, he's Magdish an Eved, they're not Roy L'Mizbeach. They're not Roy even for Bedek Habayis. But we're going to interpret his kavana to mean that he's Magdish Domav Olai. So that works out beautifully according to a mayor. We can't take him literally because this is not something that he has the capacity to do, but we're going to say he was Magdish the Dom. Sorry. Now the Rabbanon never accepted Rabbi Meir, but if the brisa reflects Shita Rabbanon, then we cannot interpret his words as if he said Lidomov a lie, because that doesn't fit into the words themselves. According to the Rabbanan, it has to fit into his language. So the Gemara says that Bishlema Avdo, in the case where his Magdish is Eved, so we understand the Brisa that the Eved is Kadosh Lidomov. And why is that? Because an Eved is Lidame Kai. His value in Damim is always there because he's an Eved that could do a lot of work and help out. So the Bryce is teaching us that although the Eved himself is not Kadosh, and therefore he could be Osevi Ochel, but he belongs to Hegdish. He's got the bias of Hegdish is upon him. He's what you call Rechush HaKodesh. Excuse me, Ira, I'm just going to get myself a drink.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So we have something called Rechush of Hegdish. That means that Hegdish has a right to sell him on the open market, and the Mos become Mos of Hegdish. Ela Ihu. Now we get to the Seifa that addresses the case of a man that was Makdish himself. And it's not something we understand, according to Chachamim, because L'dame Koi, does a person who's a Ben Chorin have a certain value of money? He's not Omed L'mechira, right? A regular Ben Chorin doesn't lend himself to Mechira. So how could the Brisa say that he's Kadosh based on the possibility of selling him? The Brisa must therefore reflect the Shita of Rabbi Meir, who holds another Motzi Dvar Bilvatolami Piv. And therefore, whether or not he's Magdish his Eved or he's Magdish himself, his Kavanah was to give the Dmei ha-Eved or his Shovi to Hegdish. And it's as if he had said, on the Eved, he had said, Domav Olai. So the Gemara says, Lema Kitanoi. Shall we assume that Rav is really entering into a minefield, so to speak, a machlokes of the Tanoim? And that is, if a person is Magdish is Eved, is he Kadosh or is he not Kadosh? A Magdish Avdo, Ein Mo'alimbo. So according to Tanakama, there's no Me'ilah, which means normally you pay Keren V'chomish. Rav Shimon Gamliel Omer Mo'alim B'Sa'aro. If you have any benefit from his Seyar, from the hair growing out of the head of the Eved, then you have to pay Me'ilah. My lav da'akam ifli mar sovar. Hadosh, Umar Savralo Kadosh. So according to one opinion, if he's Magdish his Eved, the Eved becomes Kadosh. And according to the other opinion, Lo Kadosh, he goes L'cheres. He becomes an Am Kadosh through L'cheres, like we said in the name of Ra. So the Gemara asks, V'tizbara, is it really true that the Tanoim and the Brisa are divided on the question of whether an Eved is Kadosh or not Kadosh? If that be the case, the Brisa uses the language Mo'elimbo or V'ein Mo'elimbo. That doesn't make any sense because the Brisa should have said Hai Kadosh, V'hai Eino Kadosh. So the language here should have been Eved Kadosh or Eino Kadosh, because you tell me that according to the Tana, that Ein Molin Bo Eved, that means that the Eved is Kadosh, but there's no Me'ilah. So therefore, the language of the Brisa should have been more appropriate and more meticulous. Eved Kadosh, Eved Eino Kadosh, El Kuli Alma Kadosh. Everybody agrees that the Eved has the Kedusha such that now when he's sold, his monies are earmarked for Hegdish. What are they arguing about? Reb Shimon Gamliel and the Chachamim. Dimar Sovar Avda Kimikarke Domi. An Eved has the din of Karka. And just like there's no Me'ilah in Karka, so too there's no Me'ilah in an Eved. Because an Eved hukash the Karka. Umar Sovar of Shimon Gamliel holds that an Eved is Kimitaltali Domi. When is it karka? Karka means something stationary. But if you have something that moves from place to place, on the contrary, then there is me'ilah. So Shimon Gamliel holds that the Eved, since he's, what's the word I'm looking for in English? Locutive, or anyway, means he moves around. What?
What's that word? He moves around from place to place?
Locution means movement, but how do you make it into an adjective? The Eved is locutive. I made it a word up.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Right? So therefore he has the status of metaltal. Why are we finding a machlokas here about the Seyar? We should be arguing about Gufo. Meaning, is there a machlokas about whether yesh me'ilah begufa eved atzmo? Ela du kuli alma avda kimikarki domi. Now the Gemara goes to the other extreme. Everybody agrees that eved is mitaltal. V'hacha b'sa'aro homi ligazos kamiflagi. Machlokas here between Rav Shimon Gamliel and the Chachamim revolves around the status of the Seyar. Rav Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion Mar Savar Kigazuz Dami. Since it's Omeid Ligziza, it's as if it was sheared off the back of the person. Mar Savar and the Chachamim hold Lav Kigazuz Dami. So right now the Seir is mechuber legufa eved and has a din of an eved. And what's the din of an eved? There's no me'ilah because an eved is hukash lekarka. Lema hani tanoi kahani tanoi. Maybe we'll say there's another machlokas tanoim that is identical to this one of Rav Shimon Gamliel Chachamim. This nan we have a Mishnah in Shavuos on Daf Mem Beis. Rabbi Meir Omer yesh dvarim she'em kekarka v'yenam kekarka. Sometimes there's a relativity theory. It does have a din of karka, but it's not karka. The Ein Chachamim Modim Lo. Chacham disagree. And they say that Ein Nishpoim, we don't take a shvu on anything that's Mechubel Karka, and therefore has the status of Karka. Keitzad, the Tovea says to the Nitba, Eser gefanim to unos anovim masarti lecha. The Hallah and the Nitba says, Omer she'eno el chamesh. Just 1 second here. What does it mean, eno el chamesh? You're claiming that you gave me what? Eser gefanim. I'm claiming you only gave me 5 gefanim. That's what we call modav mixas. Rameir mechayev. Rameir says he has to take a shvuas modav mixas. V'chacham omrim kol ha-mechubel karka arei kekarka. So just like ein nishboin al karkol, so ein nishboin al eitzim ha-mechubarim lehem. And now we're up to Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Chanin. So I think we'll stop here. Just make sure I get to this.
You have to go to shower brachas?
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Okay, then Iris, so let me wish you a great week.
Yeah, okay, all right. Mazel tov.
Okay, thanks. Best regards.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.